So far, the government says there has been 16,500 registrations for the scheme so far. What do you think of that take-up?
Well, no one's applied yet. You go on the website, you can't even formally apply. All you can do is register your interest. I asked a question in the Parliament yesterday. I said, how many renovations can people do under this scheme? How many do you expect to be done? And the Treasurer said only 7,000. Remember, Pete, last week on the front page of the Australian, renovation rescue for tradie jobs. Turns out it's only 7,000 renovations they expect to happen, but yet the government says this is going to create work for 1 million tradies. It's all rubbish. It's more Scotty Scam than Scotty Cam.
Well, the government says some time is needed to get the systems in place for the states to administer those payments. So should they be afforded some time? And the 16,500, yes, registrations, but doesn't that seem like an interesting uptake?
Well, they better hurry up. Remember, this scheme ends on the 31st of December. And I've been saying for weeks on this program and elsewhere that this industry is about to go off a cliff. We're told that instead of 160,000 homes built in the next 12 months, it'll drop to 100,000. Instead of building a guardrail at the top of the cliff, what they've done is put a tontine mattress at the bottom. It'll save a few jobs. It'll help to create a bit more work, but nowhere near enough. Remember, Pete, this scheme the government's announced is 1/10 of the size of the scheme we put in place to save the jobs of tradies in the housing construction industry during the GFC. That stopped the recession. We're already in a recession and the industry's in worse shape. So you've got a smaller solution to a bigger problem.
On to the border debate. Jason, it's certainly heating up at the moment and will do more so tomorrow, I think. But what is your position? Should the states open up their borders?
Well, I think this should be discussed at National Cabinet. Surely you should have the premiers and the Prime Minister around the table sorting this out rather than throwing barbs at each other across the media. This looks too much like what we've seen happen in the United States, where you've got the President attacking governors, using Twitter, calling on people to protest, to raise restrictions. We're better than that. We've been able to sort out tough problems around the table through National Cabinet, and we should be using that forum to sort this out now, rather than attacking each other in the Parliament or anywhere else in the media. Well,
there is discussions about opening up the borders. It's been unsuccessful so far, but the conversations are continuing. Now you've got talk about a trans-Tasman travel bubble that may eventually include Pacific nations as well, up to 4 of them at least. But this OECD report last night, it suggests that if there is a second wave, that there could be a $25 billion hit on our economy. How much could something like that affect our thinking at the moment?
Oh, the risk of a second wave would be devastating, both in health terms, the risk of more people dying, but in economic terms, the risk of more people joining that ever-increasing unemployment queue. And that's why we've got to listen carefully to the health experts, make sure that we follow the medical advice. One of the things we've done right in the last few months is listen to the health experts, and we need to keep doing that. I think most Australians want to see borders open. I've got relatives around the country I haven't been able to see. I know a good friend of mine who hasn't been able to see sick mum because of border restrictions. But you've got to follow the advice, make sure we get this right. We're in a recession already. That means that a lot of people have lost their jobs, and this OECD report says more people are going to lose their jobs over the course of the next few months. Now, that means more pain. You can't really understand how bad it is, the feeling you get in the pit of your stomach when you lose your job, unless it's happened to you. Happened to my dad in the last recession. We've got to make sure we make the right calls in the weeks and months ahead to make sure that this recession is no longer or no deeper than it has to be.
There was an interesting phrase that the Prime Minister used this morning, Jason. It falls under the Stache that's taking place between China and Australia at the moment, the latest being that they're warning their students not to come here for university purposes. He said, "I'm never going to trade our values in response to coercion." It might be the first time that the Prime Minister has used that term at the moment. What are your thoughts on that, Stache, and that particular comment?
Well, look, there's no doubt that the relationship between China and Australia is not in good shape at the moment. We are a safe place to visit, a safe place to live in, a great place to visit if you're a tourist. But the fact that you've got the Chinese government recommending to people not to come here either to study or a holiday tells you the relationship's not in great shape. What I ask the government to do is to pick up the phone, and hopefully someone will answer to try and sort out these problems. Part of the problem we've got here at the moment is we can't find the Foreign Minister of Australia. She's harder to find than Jimmy Hoffa at the moment. Not on TV, by the sound of it, not doing enough to try and sort this mess out with China. And the sooner we do it, the better. The better for trade, the better for tourism, the better for our universities, the better for all of those farmers and other industries that rely on trade with China to create jobs here in Australia.
Just finally, Jason, 20 seconds. Should this protest go ahead tomorrow night? Black Lives Matter protest is scheduled for Town Hall in Sydney, again, despite warnings not to do so. What's your thoughts?
Oh, look, I was worried about the protests on the weekend. I'm worried about this too. I'm worried about that second wave we talked about. But, Pete, I'm also worried that the debate we're having here, where we're demonising people who do protest, runs the risk of creating a greater rift between black and white Australians. You and I can't understand what it's like to be an Indigenous Australian. But I tell you what, if you're a young black man in Australia at the moment, you're more likely to end up in jail than university. And people march when they don't feel like they're being heard. So again, I'd call on the Prime Minister, get together with Indigenous leaders and develop a plan to try and sort this problem out.